Good evening, and welcome to the Town Hall meeting for the Town of Ossining for June 2nd, 2015. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so this is our town hall meeting. It's not a very nice night out tonight, so we don't have a large crowd. But a few people and our camera is all we need, because this will be televised and it will be on YouTube as of tomorrow. We have two items on our agenda before we open up the floor to anyone that has any questions or anything. And we're going to just reverse the order of these. These gentlemen have said it wouldn't be a problem. So the first thing we're going to start with is a presentation of the infrastructure projects in the town of Ossining. And we're going to hear from our engineering team. We have an IMA with the Village of Ossining, which is an intermunicipal agreement. And we have an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Ossining for engineering services. We started this in 2012, second quarter of 2012, and we've been very, very happy ever since. We're going to go over some of the projects. We're going to let the two gentlemen speak, and then we'll ask our questions at the end. So I'd like to, without further ado, introduce Paul Fraioli and Andy Teese. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Turn on. Green light. Okay, you want this one and then I'll get that one. It's hard.
Is that better?
Much better.
Yes. Thank you, Supervisor Donnelly, for that introduction. Just appending some of her comments back in 2012. First of all, my name is Paul Fraioli. I'm the engineer for the Village of Ossining and their Director of Public Works. And with me tonight is Andrew Teese. He's our Water and Sewer Superintendent. So again, thank you for the introduction. Back in 2012, when Ms. Donnelly became the supervisor, she had thought it a good idea to take some of the projects that she had on her agenda and some of the backlog projects that were on the existing agenda of the town as a whole and town public works, and try to implement some of them by utilizing some of the administrative forces already in place in the village and complementing the existing town highway superintendent staff as well to do some of the things that he had on his plate for completion, whether it's through the operating budget or capital improvements. So we got together, and the supervisor along with the manager at the time put together an intermunicipal agreement to embark on that effort. And I think tonight what we're going to try to do is, it's a little crude admittedly, but it's basically little snapshots with some project descriptions underneath, and we'll talk to each slide a little bit to give you a bigger breadth of the project that we've accomplished from the commencement of the IMA in 2012 through today. Some things are still ongoing, and we're going to talk a little bit about future projects as well. So I'm going to jump right in and start clicking through, and you'll get an idea when we get to this first project. One of the first projects that was on the forefront of the highway department was to assist the town highway superintendent, Michael G. O'Connor, in tackling some of his stormwater drainage problems that he had on the North State Road corridor and some of the surrounding ancillary roads to that corridor. And one of the main problems he was having with stormwater was in the Ryder Avenue area, where it's next to the park. So over the course of one summer in 2012, we utilized approximately $80,000 in CHIPS funding and internal forces of Michael G. And we were able to create new concrete curbing, additional catch basins, and additional drainage measures to capture a lot of the stormwater before it made its way out to the roadway and entire project through the CHIPS reimbursement process, which had no impact on the general fund tax levy.
Paul,
Yes.
can you explain for the audience what CHIPS is?
Yes. Councilman Harder asked what CHIPS is. It's an acronym for Capital Highway Improvement Project funds that is administered through the state of New York that gives federal money through the state for local towns and villages to be reimbursed for capital improvements that they make within the right of way. It doesn't necessarily have to be just paving. It could be any road improvement, including drainage, which is probably the single most critical factor in road life.
Thank you.
Another project we did early in that 2012 year was an existing project that you had on your books to accomplish because you had made a successful FEMA application prior to the commencement of the IMA. Was on the S-turn right across from the pump station on Old Albany Post Road. It was really not a very large project, but again, it was it had I'm going to guess a 75 or 85% match committed by FEMA, and we did just that. We spent that money, put new concrete curbing on the S-turn, new guide rail, and if you see there, a new catch basin, which not only benefited the resident on the downhill side of that tremendously, but really will lead to the life of that road at that point of Old Albany as well. Another road and drainage problem that the town and village both suffered from was in the Cedar Lane drainage area. It's really, if you look at that road, we're looking north on Cedar Lane, just north of Stormytown Road. And to the right, those are the parcels in the town, and to the left, they're parcels in the village. And on the bottom of that hill, there is the condominium association. And on the hill itself, on the downhill side, there's 2 village homes that every time there was a significant rain event, there would be surface water and collected stormwater that would discharge onto those parcels that had very detrimental effect on the residents and the property itself. So I guess early in the stages of the IMA, again, the town was already in the midst of a solution, which some of the conceptual plans were calling for $2 or $3 million expenditures of a drainage expansion down to a state right-of-way because, you know, there really wasn't the coordination with the village proper. So they did that and did some preliminary studies on the hydrological data associated with that drainage area. But once the IMA commenced, we rethought it and decided to do a simpler design and kind of keep the concept along the lines of retaining and retaining the stormwater in the road as long as we can, and then just sending it out in the existing piping down the hill in a slower fashion. And it seemed to solve the problem because since we installed that and also topped the road and put new curbs, new catch basins, we've had some significant rain events and probably along the lines of 10, 20-year storms, and there's been no detrimental effects downstream from that new drainage system there. We spent almost $250,000 on that project, but it's a lot less than what was originally proposed, so that's a good thing. And it was funded by the town highway superintendent's operating fund balance, which was basically money set aside in his operating budget for what they were planning on doing, but because we didn't do all that, we already had it funded in that year's budget. This was a much on Maple Road in the 134 drainage area, which is just on the other side of 9A from the hot dog truck, if you will. And that's a little drainage right-of-way behind about 10 homes that whenever there was a significant rain event, they got flooded. A lot of it had to do with residential grading and construction that took place over time and encroached upon the original right-of-way easement drainage area that was constructed back in the late 60s and early 70s. So the task put to us was to try to solve the drainage issues without going and impacting the private homeowners along that drainage area. So we did that by metering the stormwater flow under Minkle Road that's coming from Newcastle. That's put in by Michael G's staff, and that really had no cost other than material costs. And we had a $7,500 expenditure on an excavator that we used from the village annual bid contracts, which the town is now part of every year. So that excavator for $7,500 did some grading and wall reconstruction. And since we've installed that, we've had significant events. That's, I think, the end of 2012, maybe early 2013. And unless you haven't given me any messages, I don't think we've heard any problems from that area as well. Another road and stormwater issue was on Morningside Road. This is just north on Morningside
Drive.
I'm sorry? Morningside Drive, just north of Ryder Avenue.
Ryder
Avenue. Got that one right. Got it, 500. We spent about $45,000 there. There was some significant overlay paving that we did after we installed all the drainage along the road. Probably over the span of about a quarter mile. We put new drainage in from Morningside all the way down through and including Shaft 4, which was basically, we ended where we met up with the Ryder Avenue work. So that whole corridor, as it goes down the North State, took all that stormwater that used to rush down Ryder Ave on the North State and captured it, put it underground, and retained it. And I think it took care of some significant road problems. You're going to have long road life there, but it had a tremendous positive impact on the residents' streetscape and front of their yards. At this point, we're going to break it up, and I'm going to turn it over to Andy Teese, because it wasn't all about stormwater and road work. We did do other work too, so I'm going to let Andy talk to some of those projects.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here tonight. Initially, when we came to work for the town, as town supervisor, we understood the needs of the town, needed from us as far as engineering. We also met with Michael G, the highway superintendent, to see what was like the major weaknesses on his list, areas that needed major work. This jumped out at Michael and jumped out at us when he talked about the original concerns when the pump station was decommissioned. The pump station was originally taken out a couple of years ago for Hawks Avenue project. It was kind of left in place in case the engineering of the tie-in of those houses wouldn't work. It was like a backup plan.
And can you tell us what a pump station is?
Yeah, this is a sewer lift station. So what it is it pumps sewage through a force main into a gravity feed system. So this sewer lift station was left in place. It was an eyesore. We don't have a picture of what it looked like, but where the trees are at the end of the guardrail, it was a caged-in area, a generator. It was a little structural building that covered pumps, and was an area that caused major odor issues. Basically, it was a tank in place where the sewage would run into this building, and then it would stay there for a long period of time, and only the clean water would leave. So it was a situation where the town had to get a special pumping company in every couple of months. There was maintenance issues, clogging issues. So what we did was we went out to bid, and the purpose was to take the station out of service, put in existing manholes, and tie into new manholes, and to run a new sewer main, gravity feed the whole system. Worked out really well. It was pretty stressful because our water main was 10 feet away from where the sewer main was installed, the new sewer main, and it was about 3 weeks after we had to issue oil notice for 7,500 people throughout the whole water system, right down the street from it.
But not because of that.
No, it had nothing to do with it, but it worked out
Because
well.
of the water main break.
Yeah, it was a tough situation, it worked out well. Okay, an old picture, really old, because the new flagpole is stainless steel now. This was.
And the Christmas decorations are
Right. This was the upgrade, HVAC upgrade on the third floor of Village Hall. Pretty messed up situation because the building is a steam heated building, and obviously heat rises on the third floor throughout most of the season with overheat, so there's a lot of wasted energy. So essentially what we did was we installed a heat pump system throughout every office, and we had the ability where we shut the steam down, except for extremely cold days, because heat pumps are only efficient down to like 10 degrees. And it gives us the ability to zone it and to control the heat. And on the air conditioning side, I think a lot of people remember you drive by and see window units hanging out at the third floor. And that was a maintenance issue for our people and also for the park. So project came on maintenance. Okay, this is the story.
Andy, can you just hold the mic?
Yeah, this is the okay. This is the Stormy Town Road Oil Remediation Project. Actually, it was a sewer lift station that was decommissioned. Same exact purpose as what happened at Lakeville, and when the piping modification changed just before my time, the town did that. What was left was an old oil tank that looked like Swiss cheese. It was a big concern because when I met with the supervisor, I said, you know, most remediation jobs I've dealt with with oil tanks turned out to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. By the time you dig it out of the ground and then you trace, basically the company that we hired will sit there and measure off gases, and as long as they keep detecting oil, they're going to keep moving through people's yards. It only had like 3 feet of fill that needed to be removed. It was pretty amazing. Because the ground around this tank was clay. It retained everything. So that project was to take an oil tank off of a private lot that had an easement. And it worked out well. Okay, this was, in my tenure here, we're going on 11 years, it's the first time I've seen the town put any money into water infrastructure. The way it works with the town and the village, the town owns the infrastructure, the village maintains the infrastructure, water main breaks, running the water treatment plant, running the pump stations. When we met with the supervisor originally, we said, this is something that if you could ever make it happen, it would be huge. It would benefit both the village and the town. What this does is it was a major, it's a populated area, but obviously it's a nursing home. We had situations where we had water main breaks in the past for 5, 6, 7 hours of no water to that nursing home. They had to call in emergency services, and also the fire flow protection was very low. It was, by the insurance company, it was noted to us, it was less than 500 gallons a minute. We went out to bid, we designed it, and we ran a water main, I think it's roughly 1,200 feet, down Stormy Town and Cedar Lane, and it gives this whole area here, that whole water pressure zone, the ability to have redundancy, that we can feed an extra 20 streets instead of just taking 20 streets out. We can just isolate the valves and pretty much feed people, in most cases, steady state water.
Thank you, Andy. Just to pen 2 things that to Andy's, unless he said it and I wasn't paying attention. One of the things that the supervisor charges us with routinely when we talk about projects is cost-benefit analysis. And 2 of the projects that Andy just discussed, first, the air conditioning on the 3rd floor included a permanent installation that was definitely more efficient as far as conditioning the space in that building. So you're going to see, I'm sure you're going to see bills that are reduced versus what you had when you were running the window units, plus the operating and the operating budget cost that you had annually with the installation, removal, and the purchase of new air conditionings in every single window in every single office. So you know, for a while there, you were the victim of a renovation, just like we are on the second floor in that building with an existing HVAC system. But now I think you've done it right, and the cost will definitely pay itself down over time. The second is the pump station. When you take that pump station, which was basically turned into a large sump, a collection sump, without the ability to have gravity flow, which is really the most cost-effective way, you, by creating it as a complete gravity flow system and removing all mechanical and electrical charges, obviously you're getting rid of that reoccurring bill that you're going to get for telemetry and for electricity to that system that you won't pay anymore, plus the maintenance of that pump station that the town contracted out up until this point, and the labor that in-house forces did monthly when they went and drew all the sanitary sewage that would collect in that sump, and they would have to get rid of it every month. So those costs are no longer going to exist in your operating budget, and I'm sure within a few years that project will pay for itself. So back to some more drainage problems that don't exist anymore in the North State Road corridor. There is a building back there with Coral Sea Pools and the torches on that property back there. There's an easement along the back of all those stores, and it came to light that a double piping system was crushed at some time, whether it was during installation or sometime after, and they had, it seemed for years, drainage problems in the rear of all those stores back there. So when the superintendent and I went back there and started investigating the problem, he came to the conclusion after cammering it, etc., that the pipe was crushed, and we put out a bid for that pipe replacement and some other ancillary work to that drainage system back there, including some catch basin improvement and grading issues to collect all the storm water and put it underground as fast as possible. And that went out to bid for $85,000 and was paid in 2013 out of the highway fund, partially, and some of it was bonded that year. But again, since that installation has been there, we have heard no stormwater or drainage issues. Back there. This brings us to the biggest project we've worked on. And I can tell you this project has spanned over the life of the IMA to date from 2012 to today, because we're still not completely finished now, or I'm going to say we're close to being substantially complete, which is the Old Albany Post Road rehabilitation. That road is a dead end off of Old Albany Post Road just before it gets past Gerald Park there, the entrance to Gerald Park. That project, when we first started sitting with the supervisor's office, was discussed. The attack plan was discussed in a number of ways, from purchasing homes to making the road private to doing nothing to doing what we're doing today. Again, when we came on board, there was an existing application made in 2011 FEMA funds to do rehabilitation based on Superstorm Sandy, I think that?
Irene.
I'm sorry, Irene, yes, sorry. Hurricane Irene, the town went ahead and made application for road rehabilitation because a couple of areas of that road collapsed and a number of areas along the downhill slope had failure. At the time, they were awarded $25,000 plus or minus a couple of dollars, and in my role in the village, I was also interacting with FEMA on behalf of the village for some funding on different projects that we had to do because of the effects of Irene. So I had asked the supervisor for the ability to go back to FEMA and revisit the application process. We did that. FEMA came back out, and after a number of visits and a number of meetings with our engineers that were retained for this project, and also meeting with the supervisor's office, and after an exorbitant amount of work by our Deputy Treasurer, Dale Ferreira, we were able to convince FEMA that the project was worthy of $400,000, which we have since secured. In fact, during the initial construction phase, we made a application based on design change, which you're allowed to do with FEMA, and our total grant for that project is now up to almost $483,000. I'm going to get to that with some later slides, but total project cost on a road that used to look like this and this, where you can see some of the services were restricted. Michael G. was forced to do things with garbage and deliveries for some of the residents because of the condition of the road. And full slope failure that caused life safety issues, and as well as maintenance issues when you have to go and maintain it during following storms and following snowstorms, made it very difficult for his crews. But we've sat with FEMA, retained an engineer, and started to design a project that included augering down up to 30 to 35 feet at times, filling it with concrete with an encased I-beam. And that I-beam acted as the housing for precast concrete panels to create retention structures on the downhill side of that slope. On the uphill side of the slope, we were able to widen the road pretty much for the length of the uphill side, and where we had to cut into the hill too much, we built slope stability toe walls like this wall made out of ready rock that allowed a road that used to be anywhere from 10 to 14 feet wide. Now I think our minimum width is 18 feet and up to 20 feet in some areas. One of the nice components of this project was to save money. We did a road reclamation, which basically we ground up the existing road material and did an in situ road base, which right in place we ground up the material that was already there in a grinder, and then we reapplied it to the road, graded it, which you see there around one of the new catch basins, and then topped it with binder, blacktop. The entire road length in the project scope has new guide rail installed. And here you can see some of the concrete panels retaining some of the new drainage and guide rails and the road itself. And you can see the severity of the slope on the downhill side. But no longer is that drop off in that particular area is close to about 50 feet. Rest assured that road isn't going anywhere anytime soon with the installation that we put in there. And this is just a view of the road and the road width, and you get an idea of what you have now versus what you had before. I don't know, because it's a dead end, how many of you had the opportunity to drive down that road prior and now after, but it is orders of magnitude safer. The total project cost is anticipated, again, because we're not done, to be in the area of $1.8 million. The money presently approved by FEMA is approximately $483,000. We have application in presently and accepted for $474,000, and then we have application in for the balance, which is not yet accepted by FEMA. So we're looking, in the worst case scenario, to have at least half of this project fully funded by FEMA, and in the best case scenario, having 75 to 85% of the project funded by FEMA, which is really a nice contribution by the FEMA folks to an area that they know was significantly impacted by Irene. That's what the FEMA program is all about. Federal Emergency Management Agency, I think everybody knows that one, but that's the agency that secures and reviews the distribution of these funds through the state's SEMA office, who we also deal with on a routine basis. And it was a nice project. It took a long time, and it's right around the end now, so I'm sure we'll revisit it again when we fully complete the road. At this point, we want to just list some future projects here. We'll talk a little detail, although some of them really aren't too far along, and then we'll open the floor up to some questions. We sat recently with the superintendent of highways and discussed his druthers for his capital paving program. The town receives about $50,000 plus or minus of CHIPS money every year. There has only been one drawdown since the IMA, and I'm not sure about prior to that, but the only drawdown we used that annual money to date has been on Ryder Avenue. That project was fully funded by CHIPS, but because that's been the only drawdown, there has been a nice buildup of cash in that fund that replenishes itself every year, and that was supplemented with some town fund balance commitments. So we're looking to pave approximately $400,000 to $500,000 worth of road work. But I think the specifics are not worked out yet on what roads exactly, so I think we're going to save that for the supervisor and the superintendent for a later meeting. Shine House interior reconstruction is really under Andrew's wing, so I'm going to let him talk about that briefly.
We're working with the recreation foreman to assist him on, I guess, construction management of the Shine House.
We'll just call it the Parks Foreman,
Parks foreman.
because we have an IMA with the village.
With the Parks Department. Basically, the Parks Department has done an incredible job rebuilding the building, but there's some site issues. There's also some HVAC issues and electrical issues, and basically the sewer system needs to be rewired, air conditioning needs to be installed, and the building is almost rewired. So just helping them through the process. Also, backflow prevention units, backflow prevention devices, and upgrading a little bit more of the plumbing so that people that use the gardens won't lose pressure. Lewis Ingle Park, spray park improvements, it's a pretty awesome project. I was one of the biggest pushers to the supervisor with this project for the simple reason of the capacity of the filter plant. Our filter plant is reaching the upward side of its capacity, and we saw on really dry, warm days in the past few years where it wasn't hard to keep up, but it definitely taxed the plant. There were times when we were flowing probably 200 gallons a minute to that park. So it was the most logical solution that the supervisor went for a grant, and it's to recycle the water in the park. It's pretty much the same principle as what's being used down at the community center, except it's outdoors. So right now, this project is being reviewed by the health department. It was designed by Lothrop Architects, and we're looking to go out to bid after the season, probably, I would say probably July to August bid, and start work in September when it doesn't affect the use.
Thank you, Andy. And again, pending with the cost benefit analysis, with the project budget somewhere, I believe it's around 125, 150,000.
Well, you have $100,000 that Senator Carlucci gave us in a grant, and then we figure another $100,000.
Okay. So roughly 200, and if the
We're
town
hoping that the bids come in
Right.
very reasonable. But the return on investment is there, absolutely, that you're recycling water and you're not
Right.
using the water.
I think
And
four
saving
or
lives.
5 year payout based on your existing payments of water that you have paid for each summer. All right, 3 more projects. The fourth is exciting because it's being done in conjunction with the villages, and I believe the supervisor just received a formal draft contract today. The village also has their draft contract under review by council and the manager's office presently, and hopefully those will be executed very shortly. They're both for the same company, which is a partnership of Yonkers Contracting and Verity Electric, 2 well-established New York State contractors have formed Lumen Light Solutions. And what this contract essentially is, it's an inventory analysis, assessment, and replacement of your existing lighting system, primarily incandescent, with LED lighting, light emitting diode, and that program in both scenarios is projected to have a cost benefit payoff of approximately, I think the village is 7 years. I think the town's is along the same lines.
A the town is financing it a little bit differently, and what it is that the savings of the electricity will be plenty to pay off any the bond that we're going to go out for, and have extra funds
Right.
going into that lighting district.
Right.
We have a lighting district too in the town.
So there is an IMA, for those that don't know, with the town and village, and the village is responsible for maintenance of the town's lights. So that's why it's nice that this project is being done with the same contractor in conjunction with the villages. And more importantly, the savings that we have over the 5 to 7 year span, depending on the case of town or village, it's going to pay for the project itself, and then ongoing after that period, we'll realize those savings, keeping in mind that every time that the Power Authority is allowed through the Public Service Commission to increase their rates, your savings increases by that same factor. So the more time goes on, the more savings that these LED lighting is going to facilitate. So that's a nice project, and a personal preference, the lighting that is emitted from these fixtures is going to be very beneficial to the roadway and the pedestrian and just the overall aesthetic. The Cedar Lane Park improvements was a project that we just started discussing conceptually after Andy and I visited the Shine House Restoration Project a few times. The town is working very hard to open up this building to the public and resurrect the public visiting this area. But prior to that, there's some work that needs to be done within the park itself to be able to house the foot and vehicle traffic that is expected to go into this area. And secondly, there was discussions about possible second entrances and improvements along the parking area over there. So that's very conceptual and preliminary right now. And lastly is Andy again talk about a project similar to the Stormy Town Road project.
Yeah, essentially this project, it's in the beginning stages, but we see that there's a weak link of how to get water. After we had that boil situation last year, the reason why we had the boil is we only had one way to get water to the Lakeville system. And if we had another directional pipe, we would have been able to just isolate that and feed off of one pipe. So we're looking at possibly running another water line underneath 9A to the other side of 9A. So we feed both sides of 9A. We're looking at possibly going through condo associations or going through underneath 9A. We're not really sure yet. We want to see what's cost effective, but we know that that's pretty weak.
So at this point, we want to open it up for some questions, but to summarize what we discussed there over the last 3 years, that's estimated at $3 million worth of infrastructure improvements and some nice work with the town and village working in concert to achieve those goals. Thank you for having us.
So it is a great way of cooperation between the highway department and the engineering crew, that we have a lot of things that are going. Some of the other lift stations, was the Stonegate lift station was also removed and made a gravity system. And a lot of work was started in 2010, 2011 under Catherine Borges' administration to start the consolidation of these sewer lift stations, and to eliminate as many as possible, because if you can do a gravity system for sewage, it's so much better. I think everybody's doing a great job working well as a team, and we get a lot of cooperation, and using the annual bids from the Village of Ossining has proven to be very beneficial for the town too. Saves a lot of going out for bid and a lot of different paperwork. Every single project, as was mentioned before, has a return on investment and has to be proven that it is going to be beneficial cost, and especially for the servicing of the residents, which is why we're here. One other thing that's been going on, and then we'll let you open up for questions here. We are installing in the next week or so an electric card charging station at the operations center, putting the guys on the spot now. And this is going to be a collaborative effort between the town and the village. And I think that that's going to be very instrumental. Had a meeting with Briarcliff Manor this morning too, and we'll be looking to go out for some grants for more of these electric car chargers, because as more electric cars get on the road, people need access to be able to charge their cars, should they be in an area like a train station or something. Briarcliff Manor, as we did, looked to the train stations as a possible option, and maybe in the downtown areas. This would be a great effort if we could get a nice grant to do that. That's what we would be looking for, to do that. We got a grant for the first one. So it has to be used in a municipal building, and there's a lot of restrictions to the NYSERDA grant that we got for that. And then we'll open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Pretty good, pretty informative discussion for what's going on. We actually call this group engineering and so much more, because it's so much more. Yes, ma'am. You have to go talking to the mic.
How many lift stations are there? That,
Introduce yourself.
I'm sorry.
Your back is to the camera.
Hi, Dana Levenberg, 18 Emma Place, Nothing. How many lift stations are there? I'm asking this question too. And what is the prognosis like going forward in terms of prioritizing which ones should be addressed first, and approximately, if you can just remind me how much they cost to get to terms about these.
Well, I think good question. The first question was how many lift stations exist in the town. I'm not positive, but I'm going to give you an estimate. I think there was 14 or 15 stations throughout the town, and now we've eliminated 2 over the last 3 to 4 years. So now you have 12, I think. So those 12 lift stations, some of them, short of major infrastructure changes and grading changes, you can't take them offline. And I believe town, I'm not being premature here, is thinking of taking over an additional
One more.
Presently, the Michael G. O'Connor's staff and his subcontractors who maintain the pump stations, who are retained by the town, maintain and operate all lift stations with the exception of one, which they're looking to take over within the next few months.
Right.
Which one will be up to 13 again. And with regard to operating costs, I believe the costs are internal and work into the sewer fund district budget, and I don't know that number. And the other cost is the contractor that performs the annual maintenance, and work is to be determined. So that's a fluctuating number depending on the condition of each and every station.
See, these lift stations have pumps in them, they have generators, so you have these other costs to do. One of the things that we just did was we just went out for bid and awarded for a new sewer jet on a trailer to clean these said lift stations and these pipes. It brings us to a great topic, and it's Michael would say it himself if he wasn't at highway school today. But we want to constantly remind people not to flush flushable handy wipes. Thank you, sir. Down the toilet, because it clogs those said lift stations, and we have a lot of problems with them. And if he was here, he would give you, and next time he's in front of you, he will give you a 10-minute dissertation on what the handy wipes do, but we don't need to go into the graphic details of it. But it does clog up, and it does cause us a tremendous amount of extra work for our highway department that they could be doing other constructive things. So we send out reminders, we put it on our webpage, we do all sorts of things to asking people not to flush those flushable handy wipes. Even though they say flushable on them, it's not doing us any favors. So that's, but some lift stations have to sit there. It's all about gravity. So if it can't go downhill, it has to be pushed downhill, and that's what a lift station is all about, in simplified language. But together, they do maintain them. But there's been a tremendous amount of drainage issues. When it used to rain, like Sunday on North State Road, you would be in knee-high water. So it's been a tremendous amount of improvements out there, a lot. Any other questions? Good presentation, guys. Nice pictures.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say, when I arrived on the board in 2012, it seemed that everybody was talking about water, and not the good kind, the bad kind, the water you couldn't get rid of, or the water that was going where it wasn't supposed to be. And the projected budgets for some of the projects to address the water were just overwhelming. And from a town budgetary standpoint, it was, I don't know, I sat in my chair and scratched my head and wondered how we were possibly going to do this. And these gentlemen put together a plan with the supervisor and with Michael G. And it's amazing. I know there are a few snapshots here that tell a little bit of the story, but from this seat, I have to tell you, the end result here is just remarkable. The savings, the cost benefit. I mean, we were overwhelmed. Residents were overwhelmed. Commercial businesses were overwhelmed. Flooding, the insurance claims, and now we don't hear that anymore. We just hear about the water's going where it's supposed to go. We've saved a lot of money, and I just want to commend you guys and the whole team for an amazing job. And I think it's going to help for not only for road longevity and overall infrastructure, but also safety. I mean, there was a lot of safety issues there with flooding and roadways that couldn't handle the capacity. And I remember physically driving on North State Road when that area was flooded near Blue Lantern Road, and cars were literally driving, hydroplaning across these huge puddles, and it was like, what can we possibly do? And now it's done, and we sort of forget how it used to be. But thank you for all your excellent work in saving us money and helping to protect our town residents.
So as you can see from the future things, we're working on about 3 or 4 projects in over 2015, and we will have them done because they're well underway. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we're having, now Mike Gordon is here with us tonight, and he has told us that when you listen to community choice aggregation, you will, 3 times, you will totally understand it. I think we pretty much understand it, but we understand that there was some changes this week. We want you to go over those changes when from New York State and to the good. Changes to the good, and where would our next steps be, and if there was any questions at all on it. I had an interesting thing. I was given an email this afternoon, and a woman was saying that I think she also wrote it on Facebook, but she sent me an email, and she said, "I'm still with Con Edison. Should I go with this other company that's promising me this rate, and Con Ed is promising me that rate?" So it's a perfect opportunity for you to explain it again, and also to explain, because we're just coming out of our solarized program where we had commercial and residential properties that wanted to that choose to go with solar. And so when you look at a community choice aggregation for electricity, we had many conversations, you and I, over the fact that we would also like gas to be included, natural gas, because many of our homes are heated with natural gas in this community. We understand that other communities don't even have the option of natural gas, but in our community, many, many homes, their stoves, their heat, their hot water heaters are all done by natural gas. And when we had the solarized program, it was very, very weird timing, because their electricity bills were low, but their gas bills were sky high. So the people that do the solarized program, the communities that do the solarized program in the summer, will have the other effect. Their electricity bills will be very high, and their gas bills will be low. So I'm going to let Mike, thank you for coming, to Glenn. Glenn's with us this evening too, and we're a part of Solarize Westchester. So the town and village of Ossining and Veronica Brenner is a part of Solarize Westchester.
So I think one thing that folks should know is that Glenn, who has been volunteering his time in this endeavor.
You're gonna have to hold that a tiny bit closer.
Okay,
There.
cool. That Glenn did his PhD thesis on community choice aggregation specifically and on the potential. So he identified this project and said, this is very exciting and I'd really like to be engaged, and he's really been a godsend to our endeavor. So
He's a great communicator.
yeah.
Always answers my emails.
So I'll go through the explanation of what it is once again, just because it takes 3 times. And also folks in the...
A little closer.
Okay, folks on the television haven't necessarily heard it the last time. So basically our electricity bill is 2 bills. It's the poles and wire component, and it's the actual electricity, the actual electrons being delivered from the power plants. And those are 2 separate bills, and Con Ed is, so long ago, the state designated that Con Ed as a private company would be your supplier of electricity. And Con Ed does our poles and wires. They do the transmission and distribution piece. But the state decided that Con Edison would be the default provider, which basically means that if you do not decide to go with some other supplier of electricity, you will be defaulted to this private sector company, Con Edison. That was a decision that was made statewide with respect to the utilities. But simultaneously, everybody gets, a lot of people get these calls from the individual electricity companies saying, switch suppliers, change your electricity supplier, come with us. Now, that doesn't change anything about who handles your distribution. If you do, in fact, go with one of those suppliers, you're still getting Con Ed for the poles and wires piece, but in that case, you get a bill from Con Edison, and it includes information about Con Edison's poles and wires piece, and then that separate electricity suppliers piece, if you then go competitive. The problem is that people don't do it. That people basically stay with Con Edison for good and fair reason. So people stay with Con Edison because many of these suppliers, you don't really know how credible the offering is. You're going to get a low introductory price, and then in fact, is that price going to remain low? It's not clear because we're not experts in the electricity buying process, or at least most of us have other jobs, with the exception of a couple of us. But we're not experts in this electricity or natural gas buying process. In fact, and also as an individual homeowner or a small business, it's not your major focus, and you're not going to be sitting there trying to keep track of whether your rates are lower and whether they're actually living up to the contract. So this process is a really difficult one for folks to actually wrap their brains around and make a solid decision on. And they're only one home. They don't have the purchasing clout of many homes working together to create some aggregated benefit. So for good and fair and sensible reasons, people do not switch over from Con Edison for specifically the supply portion of that bill. They pretty much stay with Con Edison. But that's not the intent of the state, is to build a competitive market and to allow folks to compete and offer good and valuable services in electricity, and in natural gas as well. And so what we've been working on for a number of years, and this town board actually voted in support of statewide legislation that would, statewide, specifically legislation for Westchester County, that would have allowed us to become, to actually enter into something known as community choice aggregation. And so recently, on February 26th, the Public Service Commission said specifically, we intend to open up this opportunity, and I will describe it in a second, I promise. We intend to open up this opportunity to the entire state, but now, on February 26th, this opportunity is open to specifically Westchester towns and municipalities. So just to orient who the heck I am, I co-chair an organization known as Sustainable Westchester. The town of Ossining, as well as the village of Ossining, are members of Sustainable Westchester. So this is a volunteer endeavor for me as well. And we represent 40 of the 44 towns and municipalities. Municipalities are members of Sustainable Westchester. And so what the Public Service Commission allowed us to do, specifically Sustainable Westchester, is it said, you can start this community choice aggregation. Community choice aggregation is going on in 6 states besides New York at this point, quite successful in most of them. And so what it specifically allows is, instead of the default, if people don't choose to designate who their free market electricity and or natural gas supplier is, the default changes. So should this town decide that it's going to participate in community choice aggregation, the town would decide, in essence, who the default electricity and natural gas suppliers are. I mean, it just means that it just moves it from Con Edison to some other designated supplier of the electricity and natural gas. Now, that means that nothing changes except the price. You still get the same bill from Con Edison. You still get the poles and wires service is still Con Edison's poles and wires. You can still, at any point, choose not to participate and stay with Con Edison if you actively decide that you don't want to participate. Alternatively, at any point, you can choose to back out of the aggregation and go back to Con Edison. So you still have, or you can participate by going to some other private sector supplier for electricity and natural gas. Anybody who is currently with a private sector electricity or natural gas provider will not actually be moved over to this different default supplier. But what this allows us to do is it allows us, because everybody defaults to this one supplier, if they do not designate otherwise, if they do not actively indicate that they want to stay with Con Edison, what this allows us to do is to create a large RFP of most of the homes and small businesses in town, and other towns as well. It's in essence, a kind of inter-municipal deal. And when we go out for a bid that's going to be a 9-figure bid, it's going to be, whether it's $100 million or $300 million, it is going to be a bid that is going to attract the attention of many of the critical suppliers. What's going to happen is that we're going to get that clout of the aggregated purchase, and we expect to get a great deal of benefit out of doing that, and then residents will be informed what that new price is, who that new supplier is, and given an opportunity to say, no, I don't want to save money, please keep me with Con Edison. But in this case, nothing changes. Should a resident do nothing, nothing changes except the price. That's it. You're still getting your poles and wire services from Con Edison. You're still getting your delivery services for natural gas from the regulated utility. Nothing changes except the competitive market price for that supply. That's what's going to change. It's a superb opportunity. I can tell you that nationally, savings have been between 5 and 10% when community choice aggregation has been put into place. We are actually thinking that what we're going to do is we're going to seek a fixed price. And this is the piece that is actually a little bit time sensitive. It's why we're pushing for rapid adoption. Because one, we have the choice, and you'll see in the resolution that you have the choice of taking a bid, which is a variable price. It changes as the fossil fuel prices change. But we only will do that if we get a supplier who will guarantee that that price will always be lower than the utility price. And ultimately, that's a pretty difficult thing to guarantee, so we don't think we're going to get it. But the other piece is, if we get a fixed price offer, which is actually lower than the average price for the utility over the last 12 months, then we feel that it would be remarkably wise to actually take that deal at this point, because electricity prices are driven by natural gas prices, and natural gas prices are at a 13-year low, just a tad above a 13-year low at this point. It's a remarkable opportunity for us to prospectively fix our prices for, and it is our goal to fix them for the next 3 years. In that time, we expect that natural gas prices will go up. If they do not go up, there's no exit fee, so people are free to go back to the utility. They are free to go to an alternative supplier. So we're building this in a no risk process. We don't think that people are going to exit, but that's the process. That's what we've built. So, having said that, I'm going to open up and see where I have spoken Greek and get any clarifying questions that folks want.
So this is great news, I think. Anytime that residents feel that they can cut their utility rate or prices, including me as a rate-paying resident, I like the opportunity. I like the options because I believe, I don't think you mentioned it, but some of these suppliers would potentially be making bids using renewable energy sources. Is that right?
Yeah.
So some may be a combination of solar or hydro or something else, not necessarily those, but some renewable sources?
Yes. So we'll have, what we're going to do when we send out to bid is we're going to send out to these suppliers, and we're going to say, we want 3 bids from you. One, we want a variable price, if you can guarantee that it's going to be lower than the utility price, and that's the classic mix of what's out there in the electricity market. It's pure whatever comes in from the whole bundle supply, which includes renewable and non-renewable. We want a fixed price. We want your best fixed price that you can offer us. And then we want you to offer us an entirely green price, which will be without either emissions or nuclear. It'll be non-nuclear and non-carbon emissions electricity. We don't know. We expect that that price will be slightly higher. We expect that the prices that we're going to get for everything are going to be roughly 20% lower than what an individual can get if they go out to the competitive market. So that the renewable prices will be 20% lower than what they could get if they get a green renewable plan. The idea is that the lowest fixed price will be the default rate. That'll be what people will get if they do nothing. But they'll then have the opportunity to opt in, and we can campaign together in our communities to get a higher portion of folks opting into the renewable option. And further, I expect in 3 years, when we're going out to bid again, we have to get approval to sign a 3-year contract. But I do expect that at that point, I think renewables are going to be the actual lowest price available, so we could get 100% renewable at that point and save money over the utility rate as well. So exactly, it's getting there. We'll have the option near term, immediately, and it is getting there long term.
Yeah, sure. You tell me when I'm done.
So, also, now you say that there's a contract. I hear contract these days, and for some reason I think of AT&T cell phone contracts and Verizon cell phone contracts, where the big competitive leverage is, you don't have to be locked in for a contract for the next 6 months for your handheld smartphone or whatever. So I think of, now you're telling me under CAA.
CCA. Community Choice Aggregation.
Choice Aggregation.
Horrible name, that's what it is.
So you're telling me that you can lock into a contract that gives us the current lowest rate, but because rates are variable, what if the rates go down so that the utility rate actually goes lower than our contract rate? Do we get to renegotiate and also so that these rates always remain lower than the utility, even if utility rates drop low?
If the utility rates drop lower, anybody will have the opportunity to go back to the utility. We will not renegotiate our contract for the bulk of our supply, but if new towns come in, new municipalities come in, then they would get that advantageous rate. What's more likely to happen, we would actually get a new fixed rate, which would be more beneficial. What we think is more likely to happen is that municipalities that do not get in the first round, that we're apt to have hikes in natural gas prices, and that those municipalities will not be able to get anywhere near the fixed rates that we're going to come up with near term. Maybe even won't even be able to participate because we're holding ourselves to that deal which says that the fixed price has to be lower than the last 12 months average. So in a rising environment, it's not going to happen. So towns that get in late are apt to not be able to participate at all. I mean, we don't know what the future is going to hold, but
just one more question. This works very well.
You paused, I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, is this, just out of curiosity, is this an indication that currently the fact that some of this is based upon economies of scale, right, or efficiencies,
yes,
so that in buying in bulk you get a lower rate? Isn't this an indication on a bigger picture, and sorry, this is a little bit off topic, but doesn't this mean that Con Ed is getting a windfall now because they have the highest bulk rate and that every single customer in this monopoly is there? So why are utility customers being charged so high in the first place?
Well, I think where we're going to get the best benefit is actually with the fixed rate, because Con Ed is not offering and cannot offer a fixed rate. So in essence, we're creating the equivalent of a cap. And if natural gas prices go back to where they have historically been 18 months ago, at that point, we will be saving very substantially. I want to be cautious in saying this, but I'll say that it's 20%, if they go back to historically where they were. If we were just negotiating a variable rate, the experience has been that we can get, 5 to 8% savings, but we won't always have those savings. There'll be some times when Con Ed's rate is better, sometimes when Con Ed's rate is not as good. And Con Ed isn't allowed to make money on this portion of the bill, so that they are agnostic with respect to whether we stay with them or not. And it's just not, they're not sitting there competing to try and hit the price perfectly. It's just whatever we got, we'll take. It's not their core business, in essence.
Their core business are the poles and the wires and the charging you for. If you really look at your Con Edison bill, it's really a lot of the transportation costs and the delivery, right?
And that keeps going up, no matter what happens with
that is not what is affected by
Yeah.
this. It's just that I went to renewable power. Must be the day that they deregulated, and I had the good experience of my bill actually going down. I know people had their experience because I wanted wind or solar power. That's when we made a decision. But this sounds very, very interesting. Now, people that have gone to other resources will be able to opt in.
Yes, they will not automatically be opted in, but they will be able to actively opt in. And they should be cautious because a lot of these contracts have an exit fee.
Right. So if you do have a contract like I have, then you have to really look at it and make sure you check with the company. Even on the ones that say Con Edison Green Power, that's another company within Con Ed. So because there's Con Ed and then there's Con Ed has these green.
Yeah, it's Con Ed Solutions,
right.
Which is the deregulated subsidiary of Con Ed. So it's one more of those competitive suppliers. Many of those contracts, they may have an exit fee, so
Right.
you've got to be cautious.
But in natural gas, we've never had that option. This would be the first time that we're actually having an option of taking natural gas and having a choice as to whether we stay with whoever Con Ed uses and just funnels through to us, or we go with the community choice aggregation.
I've had some eye-popping numbers from prospective bidders that I don't want to say, but they really,
In natural gas.
Yes, it looks prospectively very good.
Right. Does anybody out there have any questions? Yes. You have to come and take the mic and ask your question. Please give your name and address.
I'm Tom Nolan, 5 Mohawk Road in the village. I am someone who picked a supplier as well.
Just have to hold it close.
I am one of those guys who picked a supplier. I had a bad experience now with a new supplier because, like you said, you get that low introductory rate and then they raise it up on you. My question is, when are you going to have these rates available for me to opt in if I choose to leave? And the second part is, I think you said you'll have a choice of taking the green rate, the fixed rate, or the variable rate?
Yep. So I'm going to be a little bit conservative in my projections. The process is that there's a local ordinance that and this is something that we learned this week from the Attorney General's
Well, you have other communities that have already
Yes.
voted and have to do it, have
Yep.
to readjust their.
Yep, they have to do
Readjust their law, if you want to do something.
Exactly.
Or their code.
Exactly. And so the process is public hearing, local ordinance, followed by our doing a communication out to the community that this is going to happen, followed by our getting data on how much the whole community uses in aggregate so that we can actually send out to bid, followed by sending out to bid, followed out by reply to bid, followed by a decision with respect to who is the winner, followed by a communication to residents so that they can choose not to participate in the winning bid, followed by activation. We are saying activation will be in September. Conditional, of course, on our getting good bids, but that's our own estimate. I think it could be a little bit sooner. It's more likely to slip into early October than to be sooner.
Thank you.
So you gave a little bit of a flow chart as to the next steps.
Yeah.
We had, at the point when we had a public hearing, which we had several that day, we weren't necessarily required to at that point to have a public hearing. So I think what this board will have to do is just wrap it up, see if we have a consensus of the board. If we do call for a public, start that whole process again, because with the new language that you sent to us today, I think the communities that already passed it would have to revisit it again, right?
Yep.
And just give us a little idea, because when we do programs such as the Solarize program and everything, one of the big questions that came up immediately was, why aren't the municipalities putting solar on their buildings right away? And one of the explanations was the Solarize program, just let me finish, Solarize program was for residential and commercial property owners. Now we're looking to get a municipal solar program going that the Sustainable Westchester is putting something together. What would when someone comes up to us and they say, well, are the municipalities going to be able to join in the community choice aggregation? That's the question.
The answer is yes.
Good. Because the village of Ossining, but it's in the town of Ossining, has an enormous water plant that uses a tremendous amount of energy every day.
Yeah, and with, I do expect that it's a slightly different load shade, as you guys know. And that load shade may be slightly less advantageous for getting a good price, though a water treatment, I assume you have your 15-minute consumption. Sorry? You have the demand charge, but do you actually have your consumption in 15-minute intervals? You have the meter which tells you that? And so I assume that you're using most in the afternoon, evening?
We try and run the filter plant in a steady state mode. So, you fill your tanks at night and you use the power during the day. We're using power all the time, but
you're
depends.
actually setting it up so that you're buying more at off-peak times.
We're buying the same amount 24/7.
Okay.
We're just using it diurnally, differently.
Yep.
Use more during the day than at night. I've worked at municipalities that there were incentives years ago when deregulation first happened, where we could fill our tanks at night and we got cheaper rates at night. The demand charge you always paid. You always paid a good amount for however much you used in that peak load, but the consumption charge, they varied, and I think Con Ed did away with that years ago. We buy our power off of New York Power Authority, but just as you said, it goes through Con Ed for the transmission and distribution.
Now, whether we will be able to improve on the New York Power Authority rate, which is fed by water from upstate, we don't know, but you guys can certainly participate in the process and then decide whether you want it to be in or not. And now Susan is going to kill me, but I'm going to get into what basically what you're describing is there's a lot of benefit from buying smart. So actually controlling what you consume in the 1 hour when the power grid is most stressed, and trying to move your consumption to off-peak hours and all sorts of things that I promise I will not go into deep detail. But all of those opportunities, it's not just buying in bulk. It is as well being able to hone when it is we consume with things like smart thermostats that will, in fact, provide a great deal of sustainable benefit to both the environment, quality of life, and to our price.
Good, so can we have you come on a different night and we'll do a whole energy, you know, that would be a great conversation of what
Sure.
we can do to save in other ways that isn't just this, but tonight, thank you so much for your presentation and information on this particular issue.
Pleasure.
I've known Mike for many years, and at the beginning,
Go on.
at the beginning, we used to all sit there like dumbstruck and say, because he was talking so in the future. 5 years later, 5 years later, it's like, wow, it's here. And so this sounds much more natural than it did. We actually all sat in this room, and the entire room just sat there, like with their faces dropped. We didn't know what he was talking about. But we really appreciate Sustainable Westchester and being a part of it. We appreciate all the volunteers that are participate in this. Every single government. Thanks to you all. I'm on one of the boards too. You know. So it's really interesting to see this whole shift towards not only getting better pricing, but you're absolutely right, knowing when to take a building off the grid, or using your generators when you should be using them to cut down on the power. Con Edison needs us to all do that part, because they're just being so, the demand for power is just so unbelievable at this point. So, and that's the transportation too, that doesn't go away.
Yeah, you can actually earn money by cutting back at certain hours of the year. But you know what? Again, that's for another night.
Yes, Dana.
Just to follow up on the gentleman's question before, if you have an outside supplier that's not Con Ed, and I introduce myself before, do I have to introduce myself? If you have an outside supplier before, that's not Con Ed, are you allowed to go into the community choice aggregation immediately, or do you have to fulfill your contract? Is this like healthcare, where if there's a change in the situation that you can then choose to change? And then my other question was, one of the original questions that I think Supervisor put to you was about gas. And you mentioned gas, but you didn't really talk about if that's part of choice aggregation.
Okay, so I'll answer your second question first. Yes, it is part of the community choice aggregation. And it's, if we're going to do it sequentially, which I'm not sure we're going to do, there's going to be a difference of a month tops. So we are going to do both. So that's first of all. Second of all, you do have the opportunity to get into this immediately, even if you're with a competitive supplier. It's fine, you can get in, but you have to read your contract, because in that contract it may say, if you leave this contract before April of 2016, you have to pay $120 exit fee, like your phone company. So you have to read that fine print. You may still choose to do that, but you should do it eyes wide open.
Okay, so I think that we have now heard the community choice. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Glenn, or anything? We've now heard community choice aggregation possibly 5 times. And we do appreciate that you keep coming back. I think what we'll do is discuss it as a board, and if we're ready to move forward, we'll start that whole process again. We'll call for a public hearing. We'll let people. We will invite you back. Our public hearings are always at the courthouse, and we have to be very. These poor guys have come to so many different venues that we've had meetings at now, and you've been to all of them. So we have it either here in the 16 Croton Avenue or in the courthouse. We do this once every 6 weeks. We have a town hall meeting. So anyway, what we would like to do is thank you very much for coming. I think that you've explained it. No other questions from the audience? Okay. So I think that we'll see how it goes from here.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
No, take your time. So anyway, we want to remind everyone that on On June 13th is the Village of Austin Fair, and there's a lot of activities happening this weekend too. This is the first week of June. Last week was a little on the different side because we don't normally have a whole week after Memorial Day, so we got this whole extra week it seemed like. But there's a lot of activities happening. There's a Lions Rotary softball game on Saturday at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. And there's also a planting of flowers at 200 Main Street in the Village of Ossining at 10:45 on Saturday. And there's a lot of activities. We'll try to put it together in the next day and do one of our blurbs out there with the posters and everything. But the big thing that's coming up is on June, I was going to say September, on June 13th will be the Village Fair, and on June 20th will be the annual Portuguese Festival in the Village of Ossining too, down in Market Square. Both of those are in Market Square. And now?
Hi, I just wanted to let the residents of Ossining know that we, among all the many supportive organizations that we have a new non-for-profit that has just kind of grown its legs and started, and it's called Galata House. They will be providing food vouchers, scholarships to aid with payment for education and outings and community entertainment events. People who need assistance with attending those things or their children going to those types of things in the community. Assistance at holiday time, aiding community organizations and programs by providing additional assistance to their clients and participants, and just basically being there for those who might need a little help in different times. They have a website, and it is Gullata, G-U-L-L-O-T-T-A, house.org. That would provide more information, and you're going to hear more about them as the coming months come, and reach out. And that's very exciting for us to have another non-for-profit organization that's here to help. All right.
I wanted to announce the Relay for Life event, which is occurring this Saturday into Sunday. It's an overnight event for teams that raise money for cancer research. My son Charles Blaha has a team. You're welcome to make a donation to the group in general, Relay for Life. You're free to go onto the website and donate on my son Charles's team, Shoot for the Stars. But it's all good because all the money goes towards cancer research through the American Cancer Society. So if you are free Saturday evening, we encourage you to come down. It's a beautiful event at 7 p.m. down on the football field of the AMD Ann Dorner School in Ossining. And it starts at 7, but there are a series of talks and events that go on for a couple of hours. So come on down Saturday evening, June 6th, to AMD School in Ossining, and bring your checkbook and donate to this very worthy cause. I'm looking on the website right now. It says they've already raised 29 teams and 164 participants have already raised over close to $25,000 for cancer research, and that number is of course going to go up through June 6th. So please come down.
Thank you for remembering that. That's a very important event. And again, what happens is you walk, it's a track down there, and somebody's always walking around the track, and it's a really it's a really moving experience if you've never been there. So I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's been a very enjoyable town hall meeting. We got a lot of good information. We did community choice aggregation for, I believe, the last explanation time that we need. And but there was some changes this week, so I do want to go over that with the board too. Moving forward, we'll see you next Tuesday we will be at the courthouse for our legislative meeting, and we look forward to have a wonderful week. I understand from the weather report that I saw that this is the last totally soggy day. I see that we have approximately 6 or 7 young people in here from their participation in government class. So we really enjoy you coming in unless any of you, we don't force you. If anyone wants to say anything, you can, but if not, have an enjoyable week. I don't see anybody running up for the mic, so have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. And remember, there's a lot of things going on this weekend, so participate in your community. Thank you.